All right, how's everybody doing tonight? All right, we're going to be creating a core data app this week, backend database using core data, doing a contact database, contact application, much like contacts in your phone is what you'll be creating on the in class. And the take home, you'll be able to build on that. I think I have you do 4 or 5 fields, an app using core data. And so this here is just a simulation of week 8 of what the app functionality is going to be. And let me show you here a live example on the overhead. So I have up here, I have 2 data points I put in, my name and Steve Jones, and it has a search bar up here that I can actually search for individuals. I just type in Jon and goes right to Steve Jones information. I can edit the information. I can, if I'm on a phone, I could actually type this and call the number. If I wanted to edit it, maybe for whatever reason, his name's Jonesy. Now I updated that, and it's going to update the database. Now what's cool is, up to this point, whenever we've created an app, it wiped out after that point. This one, I'll fire it up. Just in the simulator, and the data is still there. The other thing you can do with this data, once you've added it, is you can swipe it to the left, as I'm doing up here on the overhead, and you can delete each one of these as well. So really simple contact database. I'm going to go over some notes first, and make sure you've started Xcode if you haven't yet done so we can jump right into the lab. And I've got some handouts I'm going to give you in a second. But inside of week 8, there is a notes section. I'm going to have it on the overhead. If you want to bring it up in yours, that's fine. It's 8 notes, week 8 notes. I'll go there myself. It's week 8. I think it's under reading. Nope, next one. It's under podcast. And where it says notes is where it's at. And I'll bring it up here on my screen, and you can look at it on yours if you want to. Okay, we're going to talk about, in just a second, core data and what core data is all about, how we use it in app development. We are in week 8, believe it or not. Just a few more weeks, and you'll be starting your final app, full-fledged, 100%, and starting week 12. This week in apps, these are the top 10 apps, paid apps, free apps. You'll notice on the paid apps, we'll go back one, Minecraft is still up there. Last week, screen rotation, master detail, and GitHub. It's our second week of GitHub, I believe, last week. This week, we're going to do core data, view controller, UI table view, segue, and contact database. Now, we've done core data or master detail at this point. We've actually used a template for core data in Xcode. We're going to build our own master detail in Xcode using a single view tonight. So the way core data works is you've got your application level on the top left. Underneath it, you've got what's called the MOCs, the Managed Object Context, which also has a store. And also all the entity descriptions, like the table name, table fields, are all in those entity descriptions. And then a persistent object store saved to a data file. The data file is using a SQL. A .SQLite is what core data backbone is. The front end of core data is really easy to use, though you'll find out tonight, really easy to start with and to create without much or little knowledge of database technology. You just have to put some thought into the table name, what fields you're going to need. And I always tell students, if you think you ever could use more fields, what I usually do in apps is just create a whole bunch of miscellaneous fields, like MISC1, MISC2, all the way up to 20. That way, if anywhere in the future I need to add more fields to my database, I already have them there. The reason I do that is if you don't do that and you decide later to change something in core data, you've got to wipe out the entire local development environment and rebuild it. Well, you can do that, and I'm going to show you how to get to that tonight, actually, but it's just cumbersome to do, okay? And basically, it's going to wipe out all the apps you have out there that are testing. You have to wipe all them out as well if you have testers testing at the time. And so it's best to put some forethought into it. And if you, I always put tons of miscellaneous fields in there just in case, because they always come up. Manage objects. Basically, when you think of manage objects, you need to think of like an Excel spreadsheet, or better yet, yeah, Excel spreadsheet would be a good example for most of you. Excel spreadsheet has a name for the worksheet. Then it has rows and columns, okay? The columns represent the different fields. So like first name, last name, address, city, state, zip. The rows represent the actual records for each one of the instances. So like for contact database, you're going to have tonight full name, email, phone. So that would be the 3 columns in Excel spreadsheet. And then you would then add in underneath those row by row, one row would be one record. A new row would be another record, so on and so forth, underneath that column. If you're familiar at all with databases, which I don't assume that you do, the way that it works on database is like a SQL database. You've got on a SQL database the database name itself, and we'll say for this, for argument's sake, we'll call it contacts. Underneath it, you've got the table, or tables, plural. Okay, underneath tables, you've got fields. Okay, you can add to a database, you can add to a table, you can't add to a field, you can't add more, you can't add another sub here of a field. It's a leaf, it's the last part of a tree. You can also think of database of the tree. This would be the root of the tree, this would be the branches, this would be the leaves. You can't add to a leaf, but you can add to branches. And so like on a table, we have contacts in the database name. And we'll say in the contacts, we have a table called, I don't know, customers, okay? It's the table name. So customers, and then I will have underneath that, just to mimic what we're doing tonight, full name, email, and phone. Okay, each one of these fields, by the way, have to have what's called a type. So one we're going to use tonight string, but it could be an integer, it could be a double, it could be a float. Whole number of different types you have out there. We're going to do string just to be simple. All of ours, so all the types for all of these are going to be a string type. Okay? And the way core data works is you don't have to worry about this part up here in core data. Core data takes care of all this. You don't even see it. All you see in core data is this part right here. So you see the table and the fields. So tonight we're actually going to call this one company when we look at the app. Company is going to be the name of the entity. These are going to be the entity properties, which are going to be the fields, full name, email, phone. Make sense? So you don't have to worry about up here any creation. It does it for you on the back end. So actually, what's core data is doing is in the back end creating that SQL database. So managed data may be thought of as a row of record and relational database, like I already mentioned. For new record be added, a new managed object must be created to store the data. Similarly, retrieving data will be returned in the form of managed objects, one for each record, matching and defining criteria. Like an example, I want all records from 10/8/2017. Okay, so just like on this the app you guys check in every day, I can query on this app on report on the app a relational database to query certain classes and the dates of when who showed up, who checked in, with a key field on the date, class, and then date. So retrieving can be all, or retrieving can be where something equals something else. Managed objects are actually instances of what's called NS managed object, and you'll see that in the code in a second, or a subclass thereof. These objects are contained, maintained by the managed object context. Now, all this sounds very confusing, but when you actually see it happen and work, pretty simple. Does a lot for you in the back end. Core data applications never interact directly with the persistent store, or in this case, the SQL database. Instead, the application code interacts with the managed objects containing in the managed object context of a core data stack. The context maintains the status of the objects in relation to the underlying data store, SQL database, and manages the relationship between managed objects defined by that object model. The example here would be string, string, string. All interactions with the underlying database are temporary. In fact, one thing when you create this type of table I have up on the board, like we're going to do tonight, this table of fields, you don't see in the back end, but core data will actually create an index field, probably called ID. Okay, and that's going to be the unique field, or the primary field, primary key field. You might have heard that in database language. Without a unique primary key field, databases are very difficult to update, delete, and search. But with an index field, very fast and very proficient. And again, the core data does this part for you. I'll actually include that. Core data actually puts that in there for you, so you don't even have to worry about primary keys or unique keys. It does it for you. And by the way, a primary key and unique key is auto-incremented, so every time you add a new record, so the first one will be 1, then 2, then 3, so on and so forth. So core data, the context maintains the status of the objects of core data on this sentence here, starting in the middle of the paragraph. In relation to the underlying data store and manages the relationship, all interactions with the underlying database are held temporarily within context until the context is instructed, and this is important here, to save it or update, which would be saving as well. Saving, update, deleting, those are 3 types of functionality in any database language. We're going to do the same here. It's actually called insert, update, delete. I'll throw one in here too, select. So when you do a query, you can insert data, you can update data, you can delete data, or I can do a select query to just query certain types of data, maybe by date and time, or by, in this case here, maybe by full name, okay, but with the select query. And so, going on, relationships in the context of core data, relationships are the same as other relational databases in that they refer to how the data relates to each other. The beauty of it is, though, core data does all the work for you in the back end. When we first started using SQL databases in mobile app development with iOS, you had to do all this yourself. You had to like code all this yourself. All the hook, you had to import all the SQLite database stuff, build it, compile it. If you got one thing wrong, you had to start all over again. So today it's literally just a checkbox, core data, and then you have access to everything that's really powerful, as you'll see in a second tonight. So fetch property, as it refers to managed object, it basically is, when you think of the word fetch, what do you think of? The word fetch, what do you think of automatically? Retrieve, right? So that's what exactly it's doing. Fetch is retrieving data, okay, and properties of that data. Like an example here, company. When I say fetch company, I can be fetching it by the ID of that company, like a certain record, like ID 1, ID 2, ID 3. I can be fetching it by full name, Chuck Conkle, Tim Smith, whatever, Sally Jones. I can be fetching it by phone number. I can be fetching it by email. A whole bunch of different ways to fetch it. But basically, fetching is basically allowing properties from one data object to be accessed from another data object and add relationships in between. So fetching, even though you don't see the SQL database, allows you to fetch all the fields needed that you've created. Tonight and this week, we're going to just create one entity, which is equivalent to a table, company, and 3 fields within that entity. A fetch request, a predefined query that we actually use, by the way, a fetch request when we do the search criteria that I showed you at the beginning of the class. When I typed in the first 3 characters, it queried the database and only showed up the names that started with JON in the name. That's it. And everything else was out of that. So if field name's John Smith, it'll match it, bring up all data that matches John Smith. The trick is you have to match it to the field that John Smith would be in, which in our case for this week is full name. Persistent store coordinator is responsible for coordinating access to multiple persistent object stores, because you can have multiple in your app. And then the term persistent means the underlying storage environment in which data is stored. Core data supports 3 disk-based and 1 memory-based. By default, it's the iOS SDK itself, and then, as I mentioned already, SQLite. SQLite is a persistent store on the back end. Firefox does have a plugin, by the way, that we won't use this semester, but I had to use it all the time when I was developing when iOS first came out. Firefox had a plugin where you could browse SQLite databases. We had to use that because that's the only way we could control the creation and queries and updates of a database. Now we do it all in core data. But that plugin's still available. It's a SQLite browser or something like that. It's in Firefox. So when you define an entity description, which we'll do in a second, it needs to be defined with the Xcode. When you create a new project, you include core data, and the project name will become the name of that core data, which always ends in this extension. XC data model LD is the name of that extension. And so we call our project contacts. It's going to be called contacts dot that extension. And that's the core data extension. So if you don't see that extension when you create a project, you forgot to check box core data. All right. And an easy way to remember it is just remember the word data. If you can remember that, you don't see that in your beginning projects, immediately trash that project you just created and create a new one. Okay. Now you can manually add core data afterwards. It's just a nightmare to do. It's not worth doing it. It's worth just, believe me, wiping it out, starting over again, and just checkboxing core data. Make sense? And if you ever think an app, and I think I mentioned this to you guys already, if you ever think an app would ever use core data, ever use a core database, a database at all, go and include it and put in there some type of table and fields that you think you might need in the future, because, like I said, it's easier to do it that way on the front end than it is on the back end. So for the end class, what we're going to do is we're going to fork and clone iOS core data for week 8. We're going to download it, open it in Xcode, do a project clean, project build. The reason I want you to do that is in Xcode, when you do that, it's going to clean up any junk that might be in the code from whenever I submitted it. It might be stuff specific to my machine. So when you do a clean and a project build, project clean, project build from the menu, what it does basically is wipes out all the executable stuff for the iOS app and all the extra files that's built in that. We'll simulate it, we'll run it, we'll add a couple of contacts, we'll update our contacts, we'll find a contact, we'll delete a contact, and then we'll go over, if we have time, we'll go over the code by scratch. If not, I do have handouts of everything we're going to do tonight with the code included. It's a little bit more code than last week, about 8 pages, so I don't know if I want to start down that road. Depends on where we're at time-wise at the end of the demo. But I do have everything printed out for you and everything, so you should be fine. Okay, so let's go to week 8 if you've not already done so, in-class lab, and you just want to click on that iOS core data, fork and clone. Make sure you're logged into GitHub first. You have to log into GitHub first with your credentials before you do the fork and clone. You can't fork and clone without logging in first. So do that. Hopefully you should know by now how to fork and clone. You can help your neighbor if you need it. I think you've done it a number of times already, so hopefully it should be easy enough for you. As soon as you log in, you're just going to click on the fork icon here and fork it to your profile. This is on the iOS profile, iOS course. You're going to fork it to yours. So I'll click on mine and I'll fork it to my personal, just to show you. Once it's done, you'll notice it's on my ChewCon profile with the O3 iOS Bootcamp My Contacts. Now this link here, I included it because there is a way to create a web page basically with GitHub, which you'll be doing for your final app. But when you get finished forking it, go ahead and click on that link, and it should open it up into a page like this on your computer, on your browser. And this is actually just a web page, a simple web page. Okay. And the reason I wanted to show you that was with GitHub, you can not only source code your stuff, you can create websites with GitHub, fully fledged websites. Okay. Now, I'm going to click back on mine and show you one that I've done, a couple of them. And I actually have some steps of how I did this. All you need to do is basically buy a GoDaddy account, buy a domain or a cheap one, right? Then you already have GitHub already. And what you can do in GitHub is you can create what's called an organization. Like I'll show you here, I created one called, and I have all the steps for this, by the way. So if you want to do this, it's not going to require you to do this. If you want to do this, it's a cheap way to create a website, get up and running real quick, and use GitHub for your source. So I'm going to click on my RBC Eagles one. And the trick is when you to create a website with GitHub, you have to create a organization first. Then you have to create a repo with the name of that organization, .github.io. Once you do that, you click on settings, and remember this is being recorded, so you can go back and watch it later. You go down to the bottom here, and automatically, once you do that, it'll already have this here for you as being published. If it's not here for you already, you can just click on this source here and select master branch. And notice mine's pointed to RBC Live or RBCEagles.life. I'll click on that to show you what it looks like. And so this is actually a fully fledged website running sourced off of GitHub, okay, hosted on GoDaddy. That .life domain was about $1.99 a year right now, so it's really dirt cheap. GitHub's free. So for $2 a year, you get a fully fledged, you could build your own website basically. Now I had to code all this in, but there's a couple places I recommend. If you just Google the word bootstrap, this was a bootstrap that I started with and then just modified it to what we wanted it to look like. But I'll go back to my GitHub now and show you how I did that. So on the code side, all I have to do is inside of GitHub in the main code section, I have to create a file called CNAME, which is needed for GoDaddy, and just put in the name of the domain that GoDaddy, I bought the domain for. And then on the GoDaddy side, you put the same CNAME with an IP address, which I have the steps to do all that. And then within about an hour, you come back here to your repo, and you now have a fully functional website. Whatever that was, RBC Live, RBCEagles.life. Okay, so that's all done with GitHub. I wanted to show you that because Some of you may be a little bit into web design or web development, but you don't have a lot of money. This is a free way to do it. Pretty free anyway. Like a couple, $2 a year is pretty cheap, right? So if you are interested in doing that, I have a step-by-step how to do that to help you. All right, so once going back to our repo that I just had you fork, once you forked it, go ahead and do a, just for tonight, for this one, I'm not going to play with this one really. Let's just, to be faster, I'm going to have you just download the zip file because you've already forked it to your page, so you're good. So just go ahead and hit download zip. Once you download zip, it's going to put it in your downloads folder. You can extract it right in your downloads folder and open it up within Xcode as always. Make sure after you've extracted it, you'll double click on the Xcode proj file like I have highlighted on the overhead, and it should prompt Xcode to open. Take a few minutes to render it and initialize it. And then you should be able to do immediately a Command R. And I think it should run it in a simulator iPhone 8S, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know if that's the case. I think it's what it does. And we'll just get it running on your end to make sure everything's working. And yeah, it's iPhone 8S is what it should compile it at when it's done. We are now officially on iOS 11, but we're going to be compiling this in 10.3. iOS 11 is getting out. What else? You extracted it all the way? Click on the Xcode project. Yep. That's the source file. And then open it. And you have to click the open button. It will prompt for it, but you will get a little warning to open. If you open it from the web, go ahead and click on that to open it successfully. Once it gets finished initializing, you put spinning, then you can do the Command R. Make sure as soon as your simulator starts running, as always, you click on the simulator, go to Windows Zoom, and I have mine zoomed down to 50% or whatever. And just so you know, while you're waiting on yours, when you get your simulator up, you can resize it by clicking on the corners of the simulator to make it smaller or bigger, but I have mine set to 50% initially. And then I just grab the corners to make it bigger to where I can see it. Just click on this and you can make it bigger or smaller. I'll just kind of walk around and make sure everybody's got that in mind before we go further. You got to extract it. Is that folder got extracted? Open that up. Double click on the Xcode file. It's already going on the left. Oh, just expand the files. See what it's collapsed. Yeah, when your Xcode comes up, if you look at mine, yours might be collapsed. It might say my contacts on the left, but it will all be collapsed. You can expand that. What I mean by that is yours might look like this. When you load it, you can just expand it to see all the files here on the left, and then hit Command R to run it. Once you're finished running it, it'll take a few minutes to compile it, run the simulator, resize the simulator, and then finally be up and running with the simulator splash screen, and finally to the main app. Yes. Excuse me? No, that's fine. It doesn't have to be 8S. That's just how mine was. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 8 plus. I mean, it can be whatever. Whatever's on your machine, 7 or whatever you got to do. 7S, whatever it is. Should run that fine. As soon as yours gets like mine and it's running, you can go ahead and hit the plus symbol and add a couple contacts. while you're waiting. So I'm getting there ready. So as soon as you see this screen, like I have on the overhead, you hit the plus symbol, start adding a couple contacts. Just throw these contacts is fine. As soon as you add the contacts, just hit the save button. And it'll force you back to this one after you hit save. Then you hit plus again, add the second one. And then you can test the search feature to make sure that's working. The search feature is tied to the full name field. So you'll have to search for something in that full name field to show up. You can also practice clicking on an existing contact and clicking edit and updating that contact. Is everybody able to add a couple contacts, search, update, and then if you've not tried it, you can also try deleting a contact. What up? You swipe it. So when you start the app, you swipe left, any one of the rows, and you should be able to delete it. Is your guys' back button working? Back button? Okay. I have mine on iOS or iOS 8. I think it might be one. It just came out. Okay, while you're waiting on mine to load, you guys have what, 7S on yours? What you got? Running 7S on there? Is your back button working? Yeah, do a project, clean the project bill. Yay, nay? Yeah, do it on what? What are you running? 8? Yeah. Try to go back to 7. We got some change some stuff on 8, I guess. 7. Everybody else is simulator 7S here, right? 7? Yep. All right, let's try mine out here. The second handout is the context table. One is spent time night versus having time. We will create a shell of the app. The other alternative class, we're going to stop and throw stuff.
So even on the 7 plus.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay. Let me do a clean and build, which I did not do on mine. Did you do a clean and build on yours? I didn't do it on mine. This one I'm passing out is the My Context View Controller. Okay, well, mine's still loaded. Let's go over the first page. This is basically a step-by-step. We'll do, in class tonight, I think we'll go through up through page number 9. We'll go up through page number 9, which is basically adding all the objects, all the hooks for the segues, your data table. Yeah, we'll do that. I want to talk about the code and the demo one we're looking at first, and then we'll create this one up to number 9. And then the step-by-step that you have on the handout's the same as on the source on GitHub. Wait for mine to compile here all the way, and then we'll get started. Still did? Okay. Yeah, and you're 7. Are you doing 7 plus? That's what I'm doing. I'll find out what's going on. We'll figure it out. It was you and I, so something we did, probably because we started at 8 and then went back to 7. I don't know. Might be so. I have to delete that. Yeah, that's it. You go to your simulator for 8 that you have, it's already up. I'm guessing it's like mine, it's still kind of up there. You click and hold it and delete that instance of that My Contacts. I need to do that because I think it's still pointing back to that for whatever reason on mine. Probably yours as well. Good. Do mine again. I didn't change anything on mine, I don't believe. You didn't change anything on yours either, so after we do that, should be all right. If not, we'll figure it out. Code's not a problem, so probably just because we did 8S first. Yeah, still doing one. Let's see. Put a breakpoint on your self.dismiss line, like I'm doing on the back button, just to see if it stops there. If it does, we might have to rebind that as an object or action again, maybe. I'm on the view controller file. View controller line 98. Just click on 98. We're trying to figure out why ours isn't going back. So we'll get that figured out. I'm guessing it's not firing it, but I don't know. Find out. Yeah, it's not. See, I'm clicking mine all day long. It's not firing. It's not hitting that line. So I'm going to go ahead and rebind mine. All right, so let's see here what we got. You know what? I just saw something as any object. I'll find if that works. Okay. We'll get rid of that altogether. 10 back. One thing I don't like is versus any object. I'm thinking it messed up when we did 8S. Should be any object. So let me try it on mine. If it works on mine, I'll have you do it on yours. just didn't want to 8 earlier. So why not? I just did one 8S today, so let me see if there's any difference real quick. Don't know. Let's try this. Let's exit out of that project and reopen a different one that we've not opened yet. You have to redo that zip. You know what I mean? Go to the zip file that you downloaded, and I'm gonna get rid of those 2 folders that I created here. Or mine created 2 folders. All right, we'll try that. And just make sure we'll select what, 7S, right? Yeah, 7S. Put something weird in there. All right, open. Oh, everybody else do me a favor. Go to this page here. Go to where it says my contacts and tell me what version deployment target you have. What is it? 10.3. Manually select 10.3 too when you do yours. Like I just did, even though it says 10.3 in gray, manually select it. And oh, does your device say iPad or iPhone or universal? Okay. All right, we did what, 7? Good. I did what? Anybody do 7 plus? Okay, I'll do 7 plus. It's got to be the fact that we built it at 8 first. And do you have the newest version of Xcode? Okay. Yeah, I do too. This machine does too, I think. So I think that's what it is. You have to manually select. We have to manually select on the new deployment the actual 10.3. We'll see if that works. Okay. Changes in yes. Okay, well, I'm dumping mine out. I'll show you guys what I'm doing. Because it's core data, like I told you earlier, we move stuff or you mess with stuff, it'll wipe out everything in the simulator. Let me show you how to do that. If you click on the Finder on the left side of your Mac, and everybody can do this, click on the Finder, go up to the Go menu on the top of your Mac, go down to where it says Go to Folder. You're going to type in the tilde symbol, if it's not already there, tilde/library, which might already be there maybe for you. I don't know if it is, but if not, you'll have to type in the tilde symbol /library and then click the Go button. The tilde is a shift and the key to the left of the number 1 on the top row of your keyboard. Shift tilde /library / and click Go. And then scroll down and double click on Developer. And you should have 2 folders, Core Simulator and Xcode. Inside of both folders, you're going to delete all the contents of each folder, Xcode and Core Simulator. What that's going to do is wipe out any existence of core data that you've had in that Mac. If you're having issues like we're having, you need to do that. So go ahead and do that. And then you'll just trash it. When you get into the folder, if you just do a Command A and then just Control click on all of them and just move to trash, it should work. And then you might have to do a build clean, product build, and product clean and product build once you do that before you do a build again. Do what now? I'll put it up here again. It's Go menu, Go folder, and then tilde /library, and then click Go. And it's inside of the developer folder. There's 2 subfolders. Delete the contents of those. If you're having issues, I'll come around and help you because you might get an error or something, and I'll come around and help you on that. And it prompted when you build, do not upgrade if it asks you to. Okay, what I did was I deleted all the contents of my folder I just had you delete. I shut down Xcode altogether, reopened up. I'm going to reopen up the project now and see if that fixes it. Now, when I did that, though, I also wiped out all simulators that were downloaded earlier. It has to be rebuilt now. That's the downside. You need to rebuild all the simulators again that you had in there. And again, the reason that this happens is on core data, if you make any change, doesn't matter what it is, to the app, it corrupts that core data. What I mean by changing different, sometimes changing different versions of the phone like we did. I did anyway, we'll do it. So again, the best way is to do what I just told you to do. When you update it, delete the folder contents, exit out of Xcode, trash everything, rebuild it from scratch. And right now, I get this error because it says no longer is core data simulators found. And so I have to build it, clean it and build it. And come in here for the simulators. Let's see here. That's what I do. iOS 10.3. That's going to take forever. Anybody else get a simulator error after you did what I had you do? Okay. Just you and I? You getting it?
Yeah, you're getting it too. Build and run again. It's fine.
Tell you,
Hit build and run it again, and it ran it the second time.
All right, so it's me then. I probably screwed it up royally then, probably. All right. All right. Well, while yours is running, then I don't need mine to run since I know how it works here. But let's do this. Let's go over first of all in the code, if we could. We'll start out with the contact table view controller.swift. If you'll click on that in your code and scroll to the top. First thing you got to do, which is done for you, by the way, when we add in this contacts table viewer, this table viewer controller, is UI kit. It's already done. Then basically we have to also import core data and foundation. That's needed for core data to work on step number 0. Step number 1, the delegates here need to be added. UI table view controller, UI search results updating, UI search bar delegate, and UI search control delegate. That's all for the search bar for the most part. Number 2, on line 21 in your code, the filter variables. There's 3 of them. Filter data, table data, which is an NS managed object, and from the notes, remember that's the SQL store. Contact array is also NS managed object. And then this results search controller is just for the search controller. We're building the search controller, by the way I like to do it, in code only. You can do it in the GUI interface, but I like doing it this way because it looks a lot nicer and you can use it in every one of your apps. So next, number 3, the UI search function. It's following it while I'm talking. The update search results for search controller, UI search controller. The first line here, what it does is it removes all existing traces of data that's been searched earlier first. Then it does a fetch using the NS predicate, using full name contains whatever's in the search bar, the little search bar you type in. Next line takes that and gives an array of that. So like if I have 2 data records and one of them's Lucy and I just type LU, only one's going to come up in the array, LU, the Lucy row. Then on line 39, filter data equals array as NS managed object. And then finally, it's going to show it on the table on this line, line 41. On next one down, number 4, adding the view did appear, is actually view will appear. This one's actually going to load. The importance of this one is if we don't put this in, when we come back to the table view, it's not going to reload again, okay? And all it's doing in this is you'll notice calling a function called loaddb, which is the next one, number 5. Its job is to load the database, refresh the table. This line of code right here on line 1661 calls the persistent store that we'll look at in a second, called contacts, plugs it into the manage context variable. Here's a fetch statement, which fetches the entity name contact. Then a do loop, which fetches all those results and basically plugs it into the table and the array called contact array that was created up above. If they can't fetch something, it prints out for the console only for the developer saying couldn't fetch. Or if there's an error, prints that out as well. Errors happen if, say, you named a field wrong or you called a field wrong. Like, for instance, if you named contact wrong here. If instead of contact, you did contacts plural, that would be an error. On the view did load, it's calling on the first 2 lines on line 87 and line 88. It's calling the results search bar controller. Yes. Excuse me? Oh, it's not showing up in the code there? Okay, sorry about that. And they did change it on this new version, so give me a second. This was static up here a long time ago, so I'll find it here. That's code preferences. And when I find it, I will show you where it's at. Which one? Which? My fans. I'm sorry. What was it?
Text editing and line numbers.
Thank you. Text editing, right there. Thank you. Show line numbers. Thank you. You tell how often I do this. I just said it. It's done. So line numbers. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Text editing line numbers. Then I'll bring it in. Now you guys will see what I'm saying. Line 87. You see what line 87 is. So line 87 and 88 it results search controller. It basically just delegates that to where it's getting ready to use it. Then the next lines 89 through 96 basically resizes the search bar, fits it at the top of the view. So this is like the placeholder. This is where the dynamic controls are created I talked about. So it's literally creating on these lines of code I have highlighted on the overhead, lines 87 through 97. It's actually plugging in at the top of that table view controller, that search bar. Line 101 through 104 is just a did memory receive. We won't do anything with that. Line 108 through 113 says to return one column of data, number of sections with column. Line 115, which is the override table view function. It's basically going to determine if the search is being used or not. If the search is being active, meaning you actually have your finger in there and you're typing something, it's going to use the filtered data table array at the top. And otherwise, it's going to use the entire database. Okay, so if you don't have your finger up there, it's going to use the entire, otherwise it will use it filtered. Number 9, the table view here is going to determine, again, whether you're using the filter, the search view on the if statement is active. If it is, it's going to use a different data store. Same field names, though. You'll notice in here on line 140, this is where it's plugged, and 141, this is where it's actually plugging it in the rows so you see content. It's using the full name field from the data store contact. And at the end of that row, puts a nice 2 greater than symbols. If it's using the non-search bar, it goes to the next one, the same exact, except instead of the filtered data table, it's using the contact array. Going on down on number 10 comment, this function just shows what cell's been selected. What row's been selected is all it does, and it shows only in the code. And the debug window on the bottom right here where my mouse is hovering is where it's going to show. So it'll actually show down over here. Number 10, this here on the editing function, this allows you to delete, do the swipe delete. And again, it needs to determine if it's the search or non-search array that you're going to use. And that's tells which one to delete when you swipe it. Then finally, to prepare for segue, it prepares for the segue to go to the view, and the segue is called update contacts. We'll see in a second. Then it takes that row or that data, which is actually just that one record, and plugs it into the view controller in the variable called contact.db or contact.db. And that's what's used to load the database on the other side. So let's go to the viewcontroller.swift. Not as much code in this one. The very top of this one, the viewcontroller.swift, import core data as always. Some variables here for the full name, email, phone, save button, status label, the call button, the edit button. Then the first function here is the, I think the edit button is unbound, but this basically would take all the fields and make them enabled to where you can do something with it. And put the cursor in the full name text field. The BTN call, this one's actually used to call a phone if you're on a phone. Call that number if you're on a phone, basically. Using these commands here. Let format number, let phone URL equals, then the TEL : // whatever the number is. And then finally doing what's called the application share event, which basically what that's for is it opens up any application in your phone that's native, like your phone, okay? And it would, anytime your phone sees a URL that's a phone number, it prompts the phone app. Save button just saves the contact database. Now, if the contact database is not equal to nil, meaning it existed already, there's data on that form, it's going to go to this logic here, the contact db.setValue. Notice it has the field name on the form and the key, which is the field name in the database. The else path is if it's a brand new record. Notice on that one, it declares what's called an entity description using the contact table and the manage object table. And notice in the actual naming of the let contact equals, there's an insert into it. I told you earlier, one of the statements in SQL, insert, update, delete, select, and inserts used here. And that makes sense because we're inserting a new record into the managed store. We plug in all three form values, full name, email, phone, into the name of the store. And one of the things that's cool is when you create the contact database and you just hit the name of the contact, hit the period, it'll pop up whatever fields you've already declared. Like in this case, full name, email, and phone are the three available, and you just double click on it to bring it in. It does a try catch to determine if it's saved or not properly. If it hasn't saved, it doesn't crash the app. It just errors out and does not save. And again, 9 times out of 10, when it doesn't save properly, you didn't name these fields right somewhere here, or you didn't name it. Usually it's just right here. You name the entity wrong. Because really that's the only thing you manually can mess up. Everything else is pretty much automatic here. You'll see when you do it. The back button goes back to the prior view. Then this let manage object, this is actually used as a persistent store. This is actually used in the up here at the top where it saves the data by default if it's a new record. Line 110, the contact DB, that's used, remember, if you click on a row on the data table, it puts it in this contact DB as that data row. And then here's where the magic happens on the load form. View did load. If the contact DB is not equal to nil, it takes that contact database and plugs in from that database full name, email, phone into the corresponding fields on the form. I set the button for save to update because it's now been, it's already been saved. We can just update that record. I hide the button call is visible now. The button edit is visible now. The full name is enabled as false, meaning you can't type anything in it. It's false. Email's disabled, phone's disabled. BTN save is true. It's hidden as true, meaning it's gone away. Can't save it. You can only update it.
Like full name is hidden, would it just hide that entire field then?
Full name.txt. The full name here is referring to is enabled, means you just can't type in. It's not visible. It's visible. You just can't type anything in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you hit hidden, it would.
If you did hidden, it would not be there on the form at all. Yeah, you're right. Now, if it's a new record, meaning down here on the else path, notice the 2 is hidden is now true, meaning the call button, the edit button, that's hidden. Full name is enabled, email's enabled, and phone's enabled because you have to type in that anyway. Then full name becomes the designated first responder, meaning it's going to be blinking in there when you come to the form. Line 142, this tab gesture we did actually a couple of weeks ago with the contact database one, the one that had you guys type in stuff here and went down here. All it's doing here is anytime you tap anywhere on the view controller, it's going to call the dismiss keyboard function. And remember, in the dismiss keyboard function, it's the same as what we did a couple weeks back. It just dismisses all of the, if you're finger's been in any one of the full name, email, phone, keyboard's going to hide. Then lastly, it adds that tab gesture to the view that you're on currently. Number 159, number 6, adding hide to keyboard. Right there, touches begin. So anywhere you tap anywhere on the view, it's going to hide a keyboard. It's going to call this dismiss keyboard every time. And then lastly, sometimes it's nice, or it's always nice to give a user the ability to just hit the enter key on a form versus having to, to go to the next field, basically. It's going to basically serve as like a tab field to go to the next field versus having to click on another text to go somewhere else. And so this will basically resign it, hide the keyboard, and return back to the form where you can go to the next one. Okay. So let's just do it. Let's get started with it. We're going to do 1 to 9 on the handout. All right, so I'm going to start mine from scratch with you. So let's do this. From your, and you can leave that current one up and running. Or up. You don't have to close the existing Xcode. You can leave it up there. Just go to File menu, New, and go to Project. File menu, New, Project. We want to select the single view app. File menu, New Project. I'm on number 1 on your handout. We're going to create a single view project. We're going to make sure and select core data. Mine's going to look a little different, by the way, because I'm the newest version of Xcode. You'll see something missing here in a second. So everybody have single view selected? Then go next. And for the product name, let's just do CD for contact database. That's fine. Everything else should look like mine on the overhead, except everybody in here, except for a couple of us here. You won't have the option here for universal on the new version. It's default universal, by the way. And so language Swift, make sure use core data is checked, and the bottom 2 are unchecked, the including unit test and including UI test. And we're going to save this to your desktop as always. So click next, save it to your desktop. And create. Okay, on number 3, it says to uncheck everything but portrait orientation. Leave portrait orientation checked. And just for this app, I want to create, I want it to be iPhone only. I want this one to be iPhone only. And I want the target deployment to be, if it's not already selected on yours, 10.3. Good. And then once you've done that, you're ready to click on the main.storyboard. Here's where I want to stop for just a second. You'll notice on the left side of, once the storyboard loads, on the left side you should have a cd.xc data model ID there, LD, there on the end. Everybody see that? If you click on that data model file, it'll look like this. And here's where we're going to create our data store. And on your handout, underneath number 4, it says click on the core data model, which we've already done that. And then letter A, click add entity, and we're going to name it contact. So just click the add entity button once, just like mine. Notice it created the underneath entities, it created one called entity. If you just double click on entity with your mouse, double click, and just type in the word contact, just like I have it there on number 4A in bold. 4A in bold, it's on your handout. Okay, once we've done that, we're now ready to create the attributes of contact, or the fields. It must start with a lowercase. In fact, these all are going to be lowercase, but just so you know, by rule, it has to start with a lowercase, a field does. All right, so we're going to do email, full name, phone, and they're all going to be string. So if you'll look up here on mine, underneath attributes, that little plus symbol, I'm just going to hit add item. I'm going to do it 3 times, and then I'm just going to rename the, and yours is going to look different than mine, by the way. You're just going to have a couple columns, I think, on yours. This is a new version of Xcode here. So you want email, full name, phone, and make sure the type, the drop-down selection of all the types is not undefined, but it's string. Then let's do a Command S to save it so far. So far I had you create a entity called contact, 3 attributes, email, full name, phone, type string, and then I had you do a Command S to save it. Everybody got that? Now on number 5, you're going to place on the storyboard what I have in that little picture there, which is a navigation bar, a bar button item for the back button, 3 text fields, 2 buttons below the last text field, and you don't need an image for tonight's example, but I put an image on that one, so you don't need to do that. So click on main.storyboard, and let's go to our view controller. And if you want to hide the outline like I am here, I'm hovering over right now, the document outline, you can do that. And just do exactly what it tells you to do here, or laying the objects out here on number 5. Number 6 tells you, and I'll do this with you, but we're going to create some outlets, actions, and delegates. So let's go and get the content in there first. The first one I'm going to add in my navigation bar by scrolling down on my objects, find the navigation bar, and bring it in there. Bring it into the top of that view. And what you want to do is snap it. If you look at mine, you'll actually feel it snap right there with the blue lines being vertical and horizontal. That's perfectly where Apple wants it because it's right below the battery icon right there. So titles first. While we're in here, I'm going to go ahead and double click on the word title and put in there the word contacts. And then next is going to be the bar button item, which is a few below navigation bar. That's for the back button. As soon as you drop it in, you can just double click on item and lesser than symbol, space, BACK. Then 3 text fields. And you can just eye the text field length or width, kind of look like mine. Another trick, when you get one selected like you like it, the width, you can just do a Command D twice on that, and it will duplicate it. You don't have to bring it in. When you're dragging these text fields, by the way, into you'll feel it snap like mine. It'll snap in place. And then the last 2 underneath here, I've got 2 buttons. It's going to be for the save and the edit button, I believe. As soon as I put them in, I'm going to double click on each one. The left one's save. The right is edit. And I will need to resize them probably because it'll make them kind of small by default. And then underneath the, well, that's it right there. I don't think I have you guys use the status label, even though it's on there. Look here, I don't think so. No, we don't use the status one. So that's all we need. Just like that. Just like I have in the screenshot there. All right, look at me when you got that done, and we'll do the outlets and actions and delegates together. I'll leave that up here for a second. And walk around, see how you're doing. make the width of that kind of eyeball like mine, and that to be exactly the same width as mine. Big enough there to see. A couple moments there, and then we'll do the number 6 together. We're only doing through 9, so we're almost done actually with it. What up? Are we still working on getting your objects in there? Okay. Well, first thing you're going to do in number 6 is we're going to create some outlets. Full name, email, phone, save, edit. The call button we're not going to do. Status button we're not going to do. The status thing we're not going to do on number 6A. So let's do this. I'll do it with you. Okay, so what you want to do first is we'll click on any object here. I'm going to click on my top status bar here at the top. We're going to click on the navigation bar first. And then I'm going to go up here to the double circles here on the upper right, the assistant editor. And make sure before we start dragging anything that this is set to automatic. If you just hover your mouse over this right here, it'll show it should show automatic. If it doesn't, remember you can click it and manually select automatic, which sometimes you get a lot of views in there. It'll do manual for whatever reason. I think what it is it doesn't catch up fast enough to what you're doing. And here's what I always do. On number 12, line number 12 in this view, I'm going to add quite a bit of space in here. Okay, so I got some room to play with here. Now I'm going to go ahead and put them in here exactly like it's on your sheet. Okay, remember we're not doing the BTN call and status one. So we'll do full name first. And these are all lowercase, so that should help. So the top one is full name. So control click drag. And then just type the word full name, all lowercase, and connect. Click connect. Next one underneath that is email. Control click drag underneath full name, and email, all one word, lowercase, click connect. Last one in the last text field anyway is phone. Control click drag that. On lowercase, click connect. Then we've got BTN save, BTN edit. BTN save is right underneath the last text field. Control click drag. Now this one is going to be an outlet as well because we're going to be changing the name of it. It's going to be an outlet end action. So BTN save. As soon as you type in BTN save, it's an outlet. Just click connect. Then we're going to do BTN edit. Same deal. Underneath BTN save. BTN edit, all one word, lowercase, just like it's spelled there in 6, Roman numeral 5. Good, that's the outlets. Now let's create the actions. BTN save again. Control click drag. Select outlet and go to action, like I've done here on the overhead. Same exact name, BTN save lowercase, except on the type, I would select UI button. On the type, select UI button instead of the default any or any object or whatever it is. And then click connect. So I just named it BTN save. Action is the connection type. Change the type to UI button. Then you're ready to click connect. I'll leave it up there for just a second. Make sure yours looks like mine before you click connect. Once you've done the save button, do the very same thing with the edit button. Very same thing we did with the save button. You can edit, change any UI button, connect it. Right, then we're not doing call. We are going to do back, BTN back. That's up here on your navigation bar. So control click BTN back. Change it to action. Name BTN back. Type UI bar button item. I'll leave that up there for a second. So BTN back. I dragged it underneath BTN edit. Action, BTN back, UI bar button item for the type.
You have to save it, or you have to spell it the same as you do.
Do what now?
You have to spell it the same as you do. Like how you have a capital B.
This is my first BTN back. You talking about BTN back?
Or how you have a map like over by, or how you did like next to the contacts, you have a capital B, and then.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. All right, so there we go. Then you should have what I have so far.
What happens when your code on the right disappears randomly?
Then you do what now?
On the BTN edit button, then it literally says no system. All that code.
This one here? What do you mean there's no?
There, nothing.
Okay, I'll come over and look at it. And you should have a circle to the left of it. Might be on the wrong view that. Why don't you drag in that? Yeah. Yep. We've also heard a connection there. Okay. All right, next we got to do the delegates, which is full name, email, and phone delegate. So what we do on that is the top, each one of these three, we're going to control click drag it to the yellow view controller here, and then release it, and then select delegate. So control click drag it to the yellow view controller button here, and then select delegate on all three of them. Make sure now, lastly, we click on each one of these fields. Well, let's go back to this view here, the standard editor. Click on each field and put the placeholder in that I have you put in. the placeholder for each one of them for full name, email, phone. And you need to be on this icon here, the attributes inspector, to do that. This one right here. So you're going to go to the placeholder. So the first one's full name. It'll put full name in gray color. Email. And then last phone. Let's do a Command S. Okay, now our fun part. We're going to add a UI table view to the right of this. So move your view controller over a little bit, by like I just did. Move it over just a little bit, and then we're going to go up here to the top of our objects and add in a table view controller, right like that. Okay, add in the table view controller. Once you've added in the table view controller, like it says on the handout here, we're going to go to the editor menu, embed in navigation controller. Make sure that before you do that, though, that your yellow circle is highlighted, which is the view controller. Make sure this is highlighted like mine. If it's like this, it won't work. It has to be like that. Okay, then go editor, embed in navigation controller. It should add a navigation controller to the right here like this. All right. So it should end up looking like mine. And here's what I want you to do. Once you've done that, go ahead and take your minus button here on the bottom, and let's bring it down to like 25%. And I want you to move that view controller over here to the right. So you'll have the navigation controller on the left, then the table view controller in the middle, and then the view controller on the right. That's how it'll end up looking, just like that. All right, and then you can hit the plus symbol to bring it back up to like 50% or so, to where you can see it. Now, what you're going to do is right here where my mouse is, you can do it on yours. Double click right here. I have to click away and come back. There we go. Click away on the white space and come back. It's not liking mine. We just click on it once to go over here to the title and type in my contacts. And we need to also make sure this is the initial controller. And it's going to be found on this one here, the Show Identity Inspector. Take it back. It's on this one here. Click on the yellow icon here first. My contacts. Where my circle is right there. And scroll down till you see this here, which says it should be unchecked as initial controller. We're going to check it. This is going to be the first form it goes to. Can't see this, though, unless we've selected on this view controller circle. Good. Everybody got that? Let's go do a Command S. Flip the page. We're going to add a bar button item on the right side. Oh, right over here where my mouse is hovering. We're going to add a bar button item right here. You already know where that's at because we did one earlier on the view. So bar button item, click and drag it right there. As soon as you add a bar button item, we're going to make that a style border, which it should already be like mine is. Identifier, we're going to change it from custom to add on system item. It'll change it to a plus symbol when you do that. Okay. Then we're going to control click and drag this plus symbol to our view controller, and we're going to select modally. So I'll do, if you want to watch me, I'm going to click and drag it, and I'm going to select present modally right there. That's what I want you to select. So control click drag the plus symbol to the view controller. When you release your mouse, this will pop up, and that's the one you want to select. And then it puts a little segue. If you click on that segue, you just created that with a control click drag. All right, letter D, we're going to go right here. Take your mouse. In fact, do this for me. Click in between the two in this little white space, is what I always do. Like click in the white space and come over here and click once right there. All right. And actually click down here in the little blue bar. Underneath prototype cell, click there. So white space and click there. Then under style, see where it says custom on the right side? We want to select right detail. Then you should see pop up like I have one. Title and detail should show up. Then the identifier, and this is real important, make sure it's spelled just like mine on letter D, Roman numeral 2, cell in the identifier. Needs this to be able to go over to the view controller in a second. All right. Also, we're going to control click drag that blue bar section here over into the form, and we're going to select present modally again. So again, I usually click once here in the white space, come back, click in here once, then control click drag, and we want to do present modally, the very top one there, under selection segue. Now here's the tricky part. As soon as you do that, you'll notice two segues. I want you to click on both segues until you get to the one that says detail, okay? The one that says detail is the one we're going to have to make look like the one underneath Roman numeral 4 under letter D. See where it says identifier, update contacts? You're going to have to type update contacts in there. All one word, caps U and caps C. This is needed, by the way, for the segue to go to the correct area. Yours will look different than mine, by the way, probably, because I have a different version of Xcode, but yours should look just like the one on the sheet, probably. Okay? So you'll have identifier, update contacts. You're not going to have this here class module, probably, but you will have what? Kind, which is going to be on your end segue, I believe. Present modally, presentation default, and transition default, right? Got that? Let's do a Command S. Then it says on letter E to select the navigation item and type my contacts. We've already done that. I had you do that first. We did a Command S. Number 9, here's where we add the table view and bind it. But what we're doing here on number 9, basically, remember I told you a couple weeks back, in fact, last 3 weeks, after you add a view, what's the second thing you got to add to bind to that view? Remember, it starts with a C. It's a class. Class. You have to create a class file, basically. All right? So do this for me. Go over to your CD folder on your files over on the left. Do a control click on CD. Let's do new file. It should by default select what I did. It should be iOS. Because notice you have iOS, watchOS, tvOS, macOS. You have iOS, Cocoa Touch class. Next. And right here, you're going to type in exactly what I have on the handout here on D, 9D, contact table view controller. And on the subclass, you need to make sure and select the subclass of UI table view. Type this in just like I have it on your handout. And then subclass, instead of NX object, it's UI table view controller. You can just click the drop down and select it. You'll see it. UI table view controller is what you want it to be. Everything else looks just like mine. So contact table view controller, subclass of UI table view controller. We need that because that's what's going to bind to that view we just created, that table view we created. Once you've got those two selected, language should be Swift. Don't change that. And then click Next, and then click Create. And it should end up looking like this. You just created the class. Notice it's a UI table view class, controller class. And it has all the hooks in there to start what we need to put into code later. So click on the main.storyboard. Go to the one we just created, this My Contacts one here, And here's where we're going to have to bind in that class. Now you have to click on the view controller, the little yellow circle, go over to this icon here on Xcode that I'm hovering, the identity inspector. It's a little box, looks like a little newspaper icon. And underneath custom class, select the class icon. There should only be one in there that says contact table view controller. Select that, and then click Command S. And you've now bound that to your application. So let's go ahead and run it just to make sure. Command S it, and then Command R. We haven't added any code in here, but I just want to make sure everything's looking good as far as your segues. I might be able to palm on it. I'll let everything out. Let's see. 10.3.1. 10.3.1 is available. I'll watch everything out. Okay, let's see if I can fix this here for me. Devices. Mine's not going to work, so I have to rebuild start my machine, so I'm not going to mess with it. All right, so yours build?
Yeah, but it's just.
Yeah, it's going to be blank. Yeah, it's going to be blank. You're not putting anything in it. Good, good, good. All right, so let's go over the code that you need to put in between now and next week. All right, so on your handout there on number 10, the code for view controller, and then 11 is a code for contact table view controller. I gave you both printouts, but let me just show you on the overhead. If you click on those links in that Word document, which by the way is in the source control, let me go there real quick. So the source control, which is one you guys did for the in-class, if you look on the overhead, that Word document I printed out for you, it's right here. And the link on number 10, 11 actually sends you to the actual original switch file. So view controller and contact table view controller, both of those. So if I click on contact table view controller, it's got the same code that you have on your printout. Tells you exactly, and just follow it step by step. Start with 0, then 1, then 2, so on and so forth. You've done that before. And I suggest using your handouts to type them in. But if you're short on time, that's why you've got the code to look at. So we went over the code, how it works. So view controller and contacts table view controller both have the line by line. Here's what you need to do. Here's what you need, and it's already done for you. But when you're creating your new one, so for your homework or for your in class, let's do this. Just so you'll have something submitted here for me, so I can grade it. Let's see, website URL. All right, you've got that. When I had you fork your project to your account on GitHub, it gave you a URL for that GitHub repo. Go ahead and give me that for the contact database. And this is what it should look like. And that's the URL. That's my URL up there. ChiuCon03 iOS Bootcamp. My contact. Just submit that URL for me in week 8 in class. And while you're doing that, I'm going to talk about, and there is challenge, by the way. If you want, you can add birth date field to this one, which isn't in the original one, but you don't have to. That's just for the in-class challenge if you want to do it outside of class. The assignment, you're going to build on what you did in here. You're going to create a core data database, 4 fields of your choice. Make sure it's an iPhone-only app. It could be a recipe app, a website, gathering websites, gathering contacts. So again, 4 fields of your choice. Make sure you call my core data. Make sure the search capacity is adding, updating, deleting is working, and you have the source code to look at. The app will have a UI table view controller, initial view controller to load, add, and delete records. It'll have high keyboard in there. Challenge. If you want to do this, you've not done this yet. If you want to create icons for your app, you get an extra 20 points. If you click on this link in the assignment, it'll take you to a step-by-step of how to really easily create icons. All right, there's a great company called makeappicon.com. But before you do that, you have to create an image that is 1200 by 1200. You go here to the makeappicon.com, and it tells you exactly, it says best results now, they upped it, 1536 by 1536. Create a 1536 by 1536 image in Pixlr, save it as a PNG. You upload it. What's cool about it is once you upload it, it emails you a zip file with all the icons already done for you, and you literally just click and drag those icons into your Xcode project. In fact, it shows you how to do it on this step, but I'll show you real quick on the overhead where it's done at. So basically, it's here in the app icons. You just click and drag the whole folder they give you right into here, and it'll create an app icon 2, and there's all your new icons it just created for you automatically. And so once you select those new icons and drag them in, the tricky part is once you drag in the app icon folder, which actually is called appicon.iconset, you'll go back to Xcode main project form and select those new app icons, which is going to be probably more likely called app icon 2. So you'll click on this again and select. Right now it's let's see, app icon. It'll be called app icon 2 basically, and then you'll have all of the icons for your phone home screen, for sharing, for iPad, iPhone, all the different versions, all done for you. Make app icon, great website. And then again, that's a challenge for you. Once you're finished with that, you can submit that again as your GitHub URL, but I wouldn't mess with anything more on the in-class except for you've got basically the foundation for your assignment now, what we've done tonight in class. Now you just got to add your code, right? One of the things I'll mention on your handout, once you get through adding your code, make sure you do the auto sizing, which you've done that umpteen times already. Make sure on the auto sizing, you just need to really do that on the view controller. You don't technically need to do it on the contact table view controller, just on the view controller. You know, I tell you to do it on both. I got heard to do it on both. You only need to do it on one. Because the contact table view controller, everything's kind of like tight in there. There's nothing really to move around. Then test it, make sure everything works. And then challenge icon, like I said earlier. Also, in that app icon that they create for you, it actually creates a splash screen for you as well. And in that splash screen, I know we played with a splash screen the first few weeks. It's actually this screen right here, the launch screen. You just put that image right there, boom, and you got a nice splash screen. And it has some really cool apps on that website that are totally free to use and to download, where you can make like your own websites of your app. You'll do like, you can do screenshots and make like nice looking website promoting your app. So anyway, questions on your take home. All right, well, enjoy it, have fun. Thanks for helping each other tonight, appreciate it. If you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, you can hang out and keep working on your projects and enjoy the weather. Yes, sir.
Because I had already done this summer class. I had already worked